Cloaked in the shadows.
Okay, Amanda, what's going on today?
We're talking to another guest.
What podcast?
Cloaked in the shadows.
Yeah, now this is people may remember this lady as well. Months ago now, wasn't it, this? But there's a bit of time context in this one. This is our friend Ruth, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, who's Ruth? Ruth O'Reilly.
Ruth O'Reilly is a tarot reader and a radio presenter and all kinds of more things.
Yeah, and also a very, very good poet in her own right as well. And at the time when we recorded this podcast, she's also been involved in improvised theatre companies. And that was interesting seeing Ruth actually go to that. So I think it took her right out of the comfort zone for that one, didn't we? But this was recorded a couple of weeks ago in a top secret location in central Manchester. Because Ruth, after finishing part one off, revealed to us she had other things she wanted to talk to us about today as well, didn't she? So
yeah.
Enjoy, guys. We will see what's here.
Cloaked in the shadows.
Right, Amanda. Where are we today?
We're in a secret location in the centre of Manchester.
Is it the same one as last time, possibly?
Yeah.
So it's a bit different this time because we're actually outside.
And there's a weird yellow thing in the sky.
Oh, is that sun?
Yeah, we're not used to it. Now, of course, we have the wonderful Ruth O'Reilly with us today again. Yes, this is going to be becoming a regular series, this Ruth, isn't it? We may have to call this the Andy, Amanda and Ruth show.
And I've said I'm not going to hog your show, but you'll have to kind of stop me talking when it's not.
No, seriously, today, obviously, people heard last month's episode. We were tweaked with more we want to talk about Ruth today. So what we're going to do, this is going to be the second of a series of episodes, basically.
Ooh.
So now, there's a few things we want to talk with Ruth specifically today. Now, I've had a couple of messages already come through in this one about our focus on time travel on the fourth episode. Particularly the gentleman Enoch Alec, who's on TikTok at the moment, making all kinds of predictions. That he's supposed to be from 2671.
Right, yeah.
And would you believe, Ruth, he's got 1.5 million subscribers.
Wow. Are they all from this dimension or another one? That's the thing. He's hired a bunch of aliens, hasn't he?
Amanda, what do you think?
No comment.
Well, I'll give you backtrack what we said in the last episode. It was like he was coming up with all these predictions, and you read them, and they were not. But some of them, you wonder, don't you? Are you telling the truth or not? One about Amanda. Tell everybody again the one you liked about the penguins.
The one about combining humans with penguins.
Yeah. Well, I think we're nearly there in a way, aren't we? When you look at a penguin, we're nearly there. So how do we know? Maybe there's some truth in that one.
Well, there's already at the moment, on the last episode, again, paraphrase, where they're just going to recreate the DNA of a big woolly one, the big woolly.
Yeah. The woolly mammoths.
The woolly mammoth, yeah. And they've done it as a meatball for food. So it is changing. But I want to ask Ruth's opinion on time travel today.
I certainly, I'll join the whole woo-woo crew and say I definitely do believe in time travel. Not necessarily the latest guy. There's so many different guys. He's like one in a string of them. But I do believe in the concept of time travel, not necessarily the time travelers that are on TikTok or whatever. I think one of the reasons that I believe in time travel is, when sometimes all of a sudden they say, oh, we found this new dinosaur, or we found this new hoard of treasure or whatever. Somehow I think that maybe people go back in time, they relocate where the things are. And sometimes you get these particular artifacts, and they do generally date stamp as being from X amount of 1,000 years ago, but they look so new in a certain way. It's almost like someone has just gone and obtained them. And that's one of the reasons why I do believe in the idea of time travel.
I do as well. Amanda, what do you think?
Well, I mentioned on the last podcast that's not been gone out at the time of recording this, that I've heard about people travelling psychically, but not physically. So I'm inclined to believe
in astral travel.
Yeah.
And you've reminded me of another kind of weird story. My nearest thing to do with time travel. It's a weird thing, and I know that some people will be like, ugh. But I'll tell it to you anyway. There was one particular time when I stood at a traffic lights, and as I stood at this traffic lights. It was a bit like the thing that happened to me with my dog when the dog went spinning around. Well, it was like everything just slowed down, and I was hearing 70s music. Now you could say, oh, well, you'll hear 70s music anytime. But it just happened to be that this was a very quiet Sunday in the kind of, I think you might know, like the Broughton Prestwich area, and the way it's kind of quiet there on a Sunday. There's not really much going on. Well, I was there.
But there's the large Jewish population on the Prestwich side, and they all went to church.
Yeah. So it was on like this kind of really quiet Sunday, and all of a sudden I was at the traffic light. There was no one there. There was not even any cars around, and I started hearing this kind of particular 70s music. And then just after that, it was like I saw a couple of people in 70s clothing, but it wasn't like a convention or whatever. It was almost like a flicker of time, and I felt different, and everything felt different, and it was, I don't know what it was, but something snapped me out of it. But it was like I looked across the road, and across the road it was like as if it was changing in some way, and I thought that I need to find out what used to be there in the 70s or whatever. And it was so quick, but that was my nearest experience, and it was something that made me think I can believe that time travel is kind of possible. It's just like you just shimmer, you can just shimmer in and out, you know. If your consciousness is just like you remove everything from your brain for a minute, and then you're just kind of open and receptive to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely other things like other dimensions and things like that.
Yes.
And I've heard cases of, and I'm going to ask Amanda to be in a minute as well, so I want to keep this a three-way conversation. Yeah. But I've definitely heard talk of you accidentally walking into other dimensions.
Yeah.
And that's come through meditation, I've been told directly as well. Because you can find your body to your brain such a level. You can do it by accident.
Yeah, by accident, yeah. Because this is the thing, people think that meditation is one of these things where you've got to sit cross-legged and go, But basically, anything that takes you out of your normal zone of consciousness, like beta consciousness, you can easily slip into these dimensions.
I've done full levitation before now.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I've also managed to get my body to, I've done astral projection before now.
Okay.
So that one was an accident, because I was doing a lot of meditation, I did too deep, and I felt myself going above the roof.
Gosh, a bird just literally flew across your head there.
And they're looking at me, you madman. But yeah, it's the case. I always remember that route, because when I saw that, I was out on top of the roof, and all you could see was this negative energy knocking around. There's so much bad energy on there.
Yeah. Because I had a dream one time, and it was a dream which, it became like as if, you know, obviously when you're in a dream, it's not really physical or whatever, but I had a dream once that made me feel like as if I had astrally projected, in a sense, because I was in this, I lived in this apartment in Salford that had these French doors, and what actually happened is in the middle of the dream, I kind of found myself knocking against the glass of the French door, and it was in such a way that it was like my body was being projected out, but even though my physical body was in the bed, it was like there was another aspect of my body that was being projected out, hit against the glass, and this was all in a dream.
Wow.
But I physically felt it hit against the glass of the French door, and I could see the French door as well, and then I seemed to zoom back into my body again. A very quick experience, but it is something that makes me believe in out-of-body experiences.
Yeah, so I've always really appreciate that. Now, one of the topics we want to talk to us today about was, and we've got a list of them there, Jason, we're more organised than we were last time, aren't we?
Yeah.
Was, and we're not doing this in order either, but hey ho. I was one about, you told us about your mum sent your cousin a weird dream.
Yes.
Tell us about that then.
So, this was about a week or so before she passed away. My cousin had this dream about my mum, where my mum was going, you've got to look after my dad. Now, my dad's called George. And she was like, check on George afterwards. Didn't say after what or anything, but check on George afterwards. So the funny thing about all this is, and she was also saying something about water and needing water. So these were 2 points in the dream. So the weird thing about this is my family is a very confusing kind of family where they don't all know each other. So my cousin.
Is your family a bit like all over the place? What's the word? Raggledy-tackledy. That's a good thing.
Yeah. So my cousin is in Ireland, but for various reasons, she never knew the name of none of my family ever knew the name of my dad. dad. Okay, so for her to get this very strong dream from mum, it was a dream with my mum in the dream saying, you need to look after George afterwards. It was really weird, because when my mum passed away and we were getting the family together and she knew that I was staying with my dad for a while, she was like, oh my God, your dad's name is George. That was what I was getting in that dream about your mum like last week. The other thing was the water thing, about needing water. Now, when my mum passed away, about 3 days before she passed away, she could not drink anything. She was very thirsty, but every time she tried to drink, the water just like kept coming up, so she wasn't able to drink anything. So that was the water thing, and both those things were in this dream.
Weird, yeah.
Just like
very,
a week,
weird.
yeah. And my mum died kind of like suddenly. She'd been ill from various ways, but was like with chronic fatigue and stuff like that. It wasn't one of these things where anyone thought she was going to pass away. In fact, every member of my family that she'd spoken to, like in the week before she got ill, they were like, she seemed okay, even though she was like a normal illness, but she seemed okay. So that was one weird thing. With my cousin getting that dream, and like she was like, I can't believe that your dad's called George, and that, you know, your mum just couldn't drink beforehand. So that was like, you know, is that my mum sending something? It felt like as if it was my mum sending it to my cousin. At least my cousin felt that way. Or is that my cousin being psychic in advance? Or was that the two of them working together? I mean, she was very close.
I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Amanda her opinion now, because I'm giving you talking here, not as a medium.
I think there's all sorts of things that we don't understand. And, like, some people put it down to coincidence, and other people believe it is real.
Is it true that we only use
real.
about a quarter of our brain's power or something, don't we?
Yeah.
Someone like that.
This is the big thing that Uri Geller was always promoting, saying we only use about 10 or 20% of our brain, and the rest is like yet to be discovered. But my cousin was I won't go too much into it, but there was a time when my cousin was like mainly looked after by my mum when she was little, so they had like a special kind of a bond in a way, more so than the average aunt and niece maybe. So I think that psychic connections like that can be made.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, this brings up to the other question you asked me before, and I've got an opinion on this one as well. But I'm going to not ask your opinion. I want to know what Amanda thinks first. Now, Ruth did ask me before, Amanda, didn't she?
Yeah.
About an opinion that you become more psychic before you die.
Yeah.
Now, I'm of the opinion it also comes in with you from past lives. You're born. So I think it's like full circle. Mm-hmm. And you forget it as you're born, then towards the beginning and the end, you're bringing it in with you, and then you get ready for the next stage of your journey.
I love that idea. That's kind of like a good concept for why we experience deja vu as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've experienced it all before.
Should we ask Amanda first? I wonder what Amanda thinks first.
Yeah, it's more or less what you said, but I just had the thought in my head that it was like as you get closer to the end of your life, you sort of become more psychic because you're like closer to whatever comes next.
Yeah, no. As Amanda told you about her, you did past life regression, didn't you? Some years ago.
On the CD, and it was like a self-regression thing.
Oh, okay.
I saw myself as a German woman.
Oh, wow.
Who fled from Germany and then like had quite a long life in the UK, and then eventually died in the early 70s.
That's amazing. From a CD as well.
Yeah.
When you think to that, really, it shows you. Just before we go into this bit about when you talk about Ruth, is like when you die, is your body going to become? Are you getting born again the next week or next day or something?
Yeah.
Is it a constant chain? Now,
Sometimes.
Let me ask you that first, Ruth, before we go on to about the other bit.
Okay.
What do you think? Is that a good enough theory of you? It's just like a chain, isn't it? You move to the next state all the time. Constantly.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard this theory about us kind of like having this elongated body where like there's a bit of our spirit in every decade or every century or whatever, and it's all our one body, but we're kind of like there's a little. So that's kind of like one theory. And then another one that I really love is from Edgar Cayce, where he talks about group karma. So I don't know if you ever heard of that, but that's kind of this whole thing about it, like just to loosely put it, we could have all known each other in another life in some way. But when you meet each other again, that's when the recognition, like, you know, the way you were talking about, you forget everything and then it wakes up. You literally, just as you meet the person, then it clicks in.
Yeah, you've said that about us two before now, you have. So
yeah, about the two of you, yeah. There were specific things that was making me think that, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I definitely saying, I'm going to command her opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so, because it's like sometimes when you meet people and you just get like a good or bad feeling about them and you can't explain why.
Yeah.
I think that's linked to like past life. Like,
yeah.
you're either close in that life, or if you've got a bad feeling, it's like something bad happened between you in that life.
It's waking you up.
Yeah, I agree. But now, and let's ask Ruth the question now. We're going to arrive a very roundabout way here. You're a Belsie. Tell us what's made you want to say this then? Like, you feel like people become more psychic for the time?
Yeah, so I had like two examples. The first one was my mum had a friend that was ill in hospital, and as she was like in her last week of life, and it was about a year, I think, before my granddad. It was just a year after my granddad had passed away. So my granddad had already passed away. Next thing, my mum's friend is ill in hospital. She's ill there in the last couple of days of life. We went to visit her, and she was in like something like a bit like a comatic state in a sense. She woke up really vivid all of a sudden, and she went, "Ina," that was my mum's name. Your dad's really worried about you. Your dad's really worried about you. And then she went back into her dreamy comatic state again. And now, a week or so after that, my mum got a letter from the doctor saying that she had cancerous cells that needed to be removed urgently. She didn't know that before this. It was like my granddad knew that something was going to be wrong with my mum, fed that through the dying friend, and then there was this kind of diagnosis. So I thought that was really weird, and it was the way that she all of a sudden became so vivid and went, your dad's really worried about you. So
wow.
That was
No, Amanda.
Yeah, I think there's some sort of link.
Yeah.
So I had a weird experience actually. I told you about it after my dad died, and I was like moping around in my flat and feeling sorry for myself, and the picture that had been hung on the wall for as long as I can remember, just like seemed to throw itself off the wall, and it just felt like my dad saying to me like, "What have you got to be sad about, lass?"
Oh yeah,
because that's the type of thing that he would say to me.
Yeah, emphasise the word
So
lass.
I didn't hear the voice like outside of myself, but I heard it sort of in my head.
Yeah.
As if that was his way of saying it by throwing the picture on the floor.
I was going to say,
"I'm dead. You know what are you moping about?"
I was going to say, how did you hear the voice as well? Because that's the strange thing about interacting with spirit. It seems to kind of like come really inside yourself, but you know it's not your thought, because that's what I used to get when I was going through that year of seeing the spirits. So that was the first experience anyway of that. Now again, when I was about 4 or 5, I think, my mum and I went on this holiday to Cumbria, and we met this other family there, and they became like really good friends of ours. But we completely lost contact with them for ages. So my mum was also someone that loved writing. She used to write to this woman, but when we moved house, the letters stopped. So this was like pre-internet and everything, and it was just all letters and stuff like that. Now, after all these years, it was like 20 odd years she'd not seen this woman. We'd not seen. Come to this time when my mum's passing away, she didn't know she was passing away, and she went, you know Pat, who I'm always saying what's happened to her, she lives right near your dad in Moston. She said, I just got the idea that she lives right there near your dad in Moston. Now, we had no idea whatsoever where Pat had moved to. We'd not seen her for so long.
That's weird.
So I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. So my mum passes away. I get back in touch with my dad's house. I was staying there for a few days. Next thing, my dad's wife said, "Who's looking in the window?" My dad said, because this is the woman next. She said, my dad said, that's Pat looking in. The minute I heard Pat, I was like, what if it's the Pat? So I was like, what? So So I opened the back door, and my dad said, "Oh, this is my daughter Ruth." As soon as she saw me, she knew me. She said, "Oh my God, you look like your mum and dad. You look like both your mum and your dad, and I've not seen you since you were 4 years old, since that holiday." Got the pictures out and everything. That was Pat living just there, next door to my dad. None of us knew where Pat had gone. That was like really weird.
That's coincidence based. You said, I'm always big believer in coincidence. That's a surreal coincidence.
It was surreal, yeah. And I always kind of leave that room for whatever woo-woo thing I say. Maybe it's a coincidence. But it was just my mum like really lucidly said, I think that Pat's living just next door to your dad. And there was no way that she would have known. And then, not long after that, she passed away. So I do think that before you die, it's a thin veil, and you're nearer to the akashic access to everything somehow.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And I think I'm asking your opinion. Yeah, it's a great point. That. All right, last topic we're going to bring up.
Okay.
This is part 2. No, it's but it was part 2 here. Is when you wanted to talk to us about what made your family start taking you more seriously with your spirits.
Yes. So and like this goes back to my granddad again. So when my granddad was ill in hospital, and we had just come back from Ireland, we'd left him ill in hospital, but we weren't sure whether he was going to pull through or not. We just got back, and for one reason or another, my mum's commitments to various things in Manchester, she wasn't able to get back on time when he all of a sudden took a turn for the worse and got gravely ill. So he passes away over there. I see my granddad's spirit now in our bathroom. My mum had washed the floor. We had like this tiled floor in the bathroom. She'd washed it with a mop, and all of a sudden I saw the spirit of my granddad with this paisley print pyjamas on him, which I didn't know that he had. Now this was the first thing. Second thing was he was holding onto the mop, and he was holding onto his stomach in a certain way. Now what I didn't, and he was like reaching out kind of, and he had his granddad cap on him. Now what I didn't know was that the thing that finished him off was an operation on his stomach that went wrong, and it was on the same side as the stitches were that he was holding on to in my vision of him.
Yeah.
So when I told my family that I'd seen this vision of him, and they were like, "Well, what was it like?" I talked about this pyjamas. That was the pyjamas that he passed away in, that operation. Now I was 6 or 7 when he passed away. I did not know these details at all. So then they were like, "Wow, she couldn't have known that. She must have seen him." And on the time of his burial as well, we weren't there. It was on a Saturday. I remember this distinctly, around 11 o'clock. As they buried him, I saw this. It was like a saber light, like a saber laser light that went whooshing past our living room and right through the window. And that was the time that he was actually buried. So there again, it was like he did one last zoom to say goodbye, and that was like his spirit somehow appearing like a saber light and flying out the window. And I didn't know the time that he was buried. So that were the two things that made family believe that, I must have had some connection to him. I mean, obviously I did have a strong connection with him. He was like, even though when we were apart, he used to always send me little books and encourage me how to read, and he was always happy when I did get over to see him. But yeah, it was like that bond was still there. But that was something that it was a portal that was only opened by seeing the dog first. The dog had opened up this portal to then seeing the humans.
It's surprised me you get bonds like that, because I know in the case of my mum died, I was 12 at the time.
Right.
And I was a bit close to her. She'd lost a plot, don't she? Looking back, she had dementia.
Okay.
But that's the early 80s, it wasn't diagnosed.
It wasn't, yeah.
But I always remember going to bed that night thinking, she's going to die. And she's in hospital going for a routine operation, and she died. She had a hemorrhage in hospital and killed her.
Oh, gosh.
And my mum, your nan's died. And I knew it before my mum woke me up.
Yeah, you just knew.
Yeah, you know something like that bond. Amanda, have you had any experiences like that?
With my dad, it was when I was staying over after I found out that he had cancer, and it was over the Christmas holiday, and I think it was the Boxing Day night, and I decided to like pray to God or the angels or just basically anything that was listening, and I had this overwhelming sense that my dad was going to die, and I just spent like hours crying, like no reason, and like trying to muffle it because my dad was sleeping in the next room and I didn't want him to hear me.
I get you completely with this, yeah.
No.
I think it shows you, I think there's a lot more as humans we don't understand about what's out there. So
we don't, yeah.
Definitely that. Right, well, I think that's a good time for us to wrap up this little extra episode here. So we will thank you again, Ruth.
You're welcome.
Thank you again, Amanda. We will see you all next time.
Cloaked in the shadows.
That was a really good chat, Amanda, that was, because it's like when we did the first chat, I think what we didn't really script it. In fact, we didn't script it, did we? So,
No, I knew that she'd have a lot to talk about, though.
yeah, and she did. On part two, people are wondering after we chatted to Ruth then, she emailed me, was it emailed you? I can't remember.
You when you sent it to me.
That was it, yeah. She came up with loads of points and stuff, which we want to talk about. So we went on to that, this second part chat. And what ended up happening, man, we went over it completely, didn't we, again? So. Yeah.
Going to have a final hour in a future episode.
You are indeed, so. Yeah, that's so nice. Okay, man. Next episode, folks, is going to be AI. No, we won't reveal it, won't we? Okay.
No, it's a secret. It's cloaked in the shadows.
Yeah, we'll keep cloaked in the shadows just in case it don't go the way it's want to. Right, guys and girls, see you all soon.
Cloaked in the shadows.